Here I brought earplugs and also something for the light. Well, they changed the date of my flight and I have to spend 24 hours here at the Singapore airport. And being here, I remembered that trend that started as a challenge on social media, which is living in an airport where people, not necessarily homeless, find all their basic needs inside an airport for free, like a place to sleep, eat, shower, use the restroom, internet, Wi-Fi signal. They even flirt inside the airport. And that new trend started the hashtag living at the airport. So I decided to do a little research, taking advantage of the fact that I'm going to be here loafing around doing nothing. Can you really live for free covering all your needs at an airport? Let's see. In 1988, Megran Karimi Nasseri got stuck at the Paris airport and had to live there for 18 years. In fact, his story inspired that movie called The Terminal with Tom Hanks. And that's when we saw that people spending the night at the airport isn't always because their flight is the next day, but there are also more stories of people who are desperate. They had no other choice. It's cheaper for them to stay at the airport. In fact, there's a word to describe it. They're called long-term dwellers, or people who live here long-term. This includes those who lose their passport, don't have legal entry, are seeking political asylum, or are trapped between two countries that are in conflict. Lately, the housing crisis and poverty have led more and more people to spend more time in airports. And yes, you can't move into the airport, but you can spend as much time as possible using the airport's facilities as a shelter, like the bathrooms and chairs. Because this option is better than the house you live in. Or is it less penalized to be homeless in an airport than on the streets of that city? And yes, this includes children. There are children who live in airports because their parents don't have a decent home to take them to. We've already seen those who do it for fashion, for fun, those so-called influencers who live in airports. But now let's look at a much darker and sadder point, which is the people who do it out of necessity. Whether they don't have a home or they have a very uncomfortable home, a very cramped space, and they just go there to sleep. And here at the airports, they do everything else with free internet. People who live in spaces very similar to these capsules I showed you. You only have a place to lie down, and for everything else, stretching, walking, sitting to watch, you just come to the airport. Well, those are adults. Now let's look at adults with children who have such an uncomfortable home that they bring their kids to the airports. This happens when the city airport becomes the area with air conditioning, public restrooms, and a place to sit. Nicer than the ones in the area where you live or the city where you live, that is open to the public and doesn't close at night like the mall, which closes at 6 or 7 in the evening. On Sundays, the security guards are already chasing people out because the stores are closed. This doesn't happen in an airport, and this might seem incredible to you, but there are countries where overpopulation, poverty, and the housing crisis are such that many people, including children, find themselves in this situation. And spending the night in an airport because your flight leaves the next day is one thing. But when your parents tell you we don't have anywhere to sit, lie down, or just relax, let's go to the airport. That's the case for many people. There aren't any statistics, and there's no way to know how many people are in this situation. The numbers don't exist, but the numbers. Airports report that in the area where you don't need a boarding pass to enter, at least 1% of all the people there don't have any flight. They're simply enjoying the comfort, quote-unquote, free, quote-unquote, that an airport gives you. There are families whose homes are so uncomfortable with so little space that they take their children to the airports. This is Singapore Airport, known as the best in the world, where many people voluntarily schedule their flights to spend 1 or 2 days here because it's so beautiful and there are so many things to do, so many attractions. Disneyland here. In fact, there's a website called sleepinginairports.net, literally sleeping in the airport, net, which ranks and gives airports a score depending on how comfortable they are for sleeping and living there. And this includes everything like lounges, reclining seats, and whether it has gardens. They also share where the cleanest bathrooms are, the fastest Wi-Fi, they even share the passwords. This airport in Singapore and the one in South Korea are at the very top of this ranking. How friendly is the airport for people who want to sleep there overnight? And the website specifically says, this is if you have to spend the night at the airport. But if you go to the forum and read the comments, you'll soon discover that most people, at least half of them, aren't interested in taking a trip, but in finding a place to sleep. Travelers, people who are on a tight budget during their trip, but also locals who live in those cities. That is, in some way, I hope it's temporary. Their circumstances are such that hanging out at the airport is a good option. Even there they share tips and advice. And there are people who even show you the map and tell you which terminals and gates aren't so noisy so you can sleep. Which ones have chargers for your phone? The seats with the most comfortable cushions. Some even bring their sleeping bags or inflatable mattresses. Of course, you have to pose as a traveler to be at the airport and use all this, but if you're good at pretending to be a traveler, you can even get into the lounges, and in the lounges there's free food and showers. I can't really take a bath, but I can do some basic cleaning, my armpits, my teeth, my face, basic hygiene. Here in the sinks I can freshen up. I have this toothbrush, you charge it with the computer using USB, and I can get a really good teeth cleaning wherever I am twice a day. This is called invisible homelessness, and of course it's a cause for concern for the airport authorities. Airports have to be very secure areas, and when they see someone who's been hanging around there for days, well, the police and airport authorities will come and question you. Immigration, even anti-narcotics or anti-terrorism agents. Even so, many people manage and have learned to avoid being detected. Technically, you can stay in the airport indefinitely unless you draw attention to yourself, so your personal hygiene and clothing are crucial. You can't have the typical appearance of a homeless person on the streets when you're homeless. You can rotate between all the places. For example, you're in a mall and they kick you out, so you go to another one, or if you don't have anything like a bed in a shelter that night, you go to another one, and so on. You can basically do the same thing in an airport, rotating to avoid being detected. The difference is that you have to keep up the effort in your appearance so you don't look like you're homeless. I'm going to rest here for a bit. There are chairs to sit on, but it's really crowded here in this little corner. I feel like I have more privacy here, so I'm gonna take off my shoes to rest my feet a bit. I have more comfortable shoes, sneakers, but when I travel I wear these because if I put them in my suitcase, they won't fit. In this backpack I have all my recording equipment, microphone, tripod, laptop, batteries, camera, all that stuff. So this one is just for recording. My clothes and personal items go here, so whatever doesn't fit here, I can't bring. In fact, when I'm traveling, if I buy a t-shirt, I have to leave another one behind because if I put a new item in here, I have to take one out. So here I have comfortable sneakers, but if I put them on, these won't fit anymore. And these shoes are really good for hiking, for climbing, so if it's rocky terrain and all that, they're excellent. Another very important aspect that I never thought about, I never considered it until I spent 24 hours here. You lose track of time. Airports operate 24 hours, 7 days a week. You have no idea. Whether it's day or night, that cycle of day and night disappears. Everything fades into a continuous, unending line of people and flights and announcements and pilots, and nothing ever stops. A place where day and night make no difference. So if you're here for more than a few days, it's going to psychologically affect your circadian clock, that biological clock that tells us when to sleep and when to wake up. And also the extreme isolation. Some people find airports to be peaceful places, and this one, the Singapore airport, they did their best to make it that way. It's like you can come here to meditate and do yoga. But in itself, it doesn't take away the nature of an airport, which is a stressful place, crowded, noisy, where you lose track of time and reality. Hot water for your soup, whatever the weather does, and cold water. And is this the reason why they go to an airport and not to a shopping mall? At the shopping mall, they open at 9 and you can't do anything outside of that schedule. Would you be a suspicious person? Immediately outside of the store's operating hours, there's no reason for anyone to be there. Also, if you sit in the same place for too long, the security guards will notice you. It's designed for you to go shopping. All of these elements are neutralized at the airport. There are so many things you can do at an airport, only at an airport in any other place. These things like taking off your shoes and sitting on the floor and lying down like that would be unacceptable. It's only valid in airports. In fact, in airports, there are many things you can do that wouldn't be acceptable in any other situation. For example, at the mall, you can't take off your sneakers and lie down. There are many things I remember. They're completely normal in airports, but wouldn't be accepted in any other circumstance. Well, I'm gonna take a little nap. Here I'm going to lie down. Cheers, guys. See you in a bit. And now speaking specifically about this one. The Singapore airport, which I think is the most famous airport on social media, on Instagram, was named the best airport in the world, the most comfortable. People even changed their flights to have a layover here on purpose, and they changed their flight schedule so they can be here 15 hours instead of 3. And all this fuss, I got asked a lot. Tell us about the Singapore airport. Well, here you go. Yes, it's nice, it's entertaining, it has open gardens, but this upper part is really full of attractions, entertainment, and things to do. Actually, most of these attractions are paid. Look, tickets, attractions, this attraction. You need a ticket? Please buy your ticket A. I mean, they're not included with the use of the airport, and some of them have really long lines up to an hour just to get in. This is basically a Disneyland inside the airport. Look, there they are, the net attraction, walking on nets. They're right here. In this area, anyone can come in, even if they don't have a flight. It's not just for passengers who have already passed that security checkpoint. So if you have your flight and you've already passed security, then you don't have access to this area. You have to come here beforehand. This is a circle, and these paid attractions cover most of this circle, leaving very few open spaces like this one, which are free. And there's always a line to take pictures, and what if you're one of those people who don't want someone else in the background of your selfie? Oh, you want the stage all to yourself? Well, look, people even come here to have weddings. They even came to the wedding now. What it does have is a huge shopping mall. It's like 6 floors of stores, a shopping mall. Well, like every airport, the food prices are expensive. You have the typical little bottle of water for $10, and the food is even more expensive. I mean, a cheap place, right? Not at all. In some places, you can sit down and relax. It's like an artificial green area with climate control. But in most places you go, it's really crowded. I mean, how much can you really relax with such a packed crowd? I mean, is it really a place to relax and forget about life's problems? Honestly, it's not. Just look at the little waterfall and this green area. Yeah, everything's really cool, but for how long could you actually look at it? I mean, for how long? An hour at most, and then you get bored unless you're an agronomist or a botanist and you inspect the plants one by one. And even if you buy the package that includes all the attractions, all of them still, once you finish them all, 3 hour stops, what do? I mean, a layover of 2 to 3 hours in that airport, you barely feel it, it gives you all the basic entertainment, you won't even have time. If you have a layover of 6 to 8 hours, well, it makes it more bearable, right? It makes it much more pleasant. Being here, you go to the little garden, see the waterfalls, get on the train, look, you're chilling there on the train, everything's cool. But after 8 hours, it's like being in any other airport unless you have a room inside it. And now, after 12 hours, this waterfall doesn't comfort you anymore. So living in an airport, at least temporarily, gives you a refuge. Air conditioning protects you from the rain. Right now it's raining outside, and having a place to use the bathroom is good. Up to that point, everything's fine. And if you have money, there are places to eat, but it doesn't give you a comfortable place to lie down and sleep or to take a shower. So you can't stay here for very long, unless you go into the private airline lounges, which are for their very important person clients, people who pay an annual or monthly subscription. Well, to finish up, there's something I didn't want to mention earlier in the video because people are always telling me, oh, you're a hippie, you're one of those tree huggers, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Global warming is making air travel more and more dangerous. There's going to be a lot more turbulence with climate change because there are cold air currents and hot air currents with a bigger difference between them. That's how tornadoes form, so there will be much more turbulence, and it's very dangerous and riskier to travel by plane. That's why millions are being invested in designing planes that are much more resistant to turbulence, that have much more effective emergency measures to save passengers in case of an emergency. And blah blah blah, hundreds of millions in investment. Here's my final conclusion. It's perfect, it's great so that we can all travel and explore the world safely. But would it be too much to ask that at the same time we also invest in housing so that no human being has to live? In an airport, no child should say my house is so dirty, it smells bad, it has a dirt floor, so we'd rather go to the airport. I mean, we can do both. We don't have to take from one to give to the other. We don't have to take millions away from aeronautical research to make safe airplanes. Can't we do both? Well, may courage be with you and see you next time.